Hello, and welcome. Welcome to episode 61 of Brews Less Traveled, the podcast exploring the best uncharted craft beer scenes across the U.S. I'm your host, Brian, and I'm happy to welcome back my co-host, Ben. Ben, how's it going?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Woo. Also doing great. This is probably going to mess everything up here, but I had a follow-up appointment on my little injury that we talked about last week. And here's some show and tell for the viewers at home. I got this sweet thing now.
Yeah, healthcare.
Booting it up. So this is much more comfortable. Yeah, much more comfortable to walk in. I inevitably are going to try to drink beer out of it.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah. But we'll save that for maybe another day. Ben, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. We are, I feel like we talk about this every week, but it's, it's pertinent, it's relevant, in the middle of a crushing heat wave. So I'm happy to sit down and drink beer. That's really all I'm willing to do today or any day this week.
Did you get that furniture built?
I still don't have the new furniture, but I feel like I have enough space and enough things unpacked in here now that we don't have the same hideous echo that we were having last week. So that's good.
Cool. We're growing, we're evolving. Great. Other than my boot, I'll tell you one thing I can't get my mind off of. And that is 2 days from now, when we are recording this, I am going to see one of my favorite bands of all time for the first time ever. I thought I would never see them again. They broke up 15 years ago or something. But on Friday, I'm going to see Rage Against the Machine, and I could not be happier about it. I am so excited.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And I'm excited to drink some beers tonight and just hang out. So on this episode, we're going to cap off our month of Bend with two featured breweries. We've got the largest brewery ever featured on the show, Deschutes Brewing Company. And we're going to be drinking their Twilight Summer Ale. We've also got local Bend legends, Boneyard Brewing Company, and we're going to be enjoying there we go, RPM IPA.
And, before we rally around the family with a pocket full of shells, we're going to be joined a little bit later on by a special guest from Boneyard. His name is Tony Lawrence. He is the brewery's founder, but we've talked too much without first cracking open a beer. So how about we do that?
Let's do that. Great idea. Ben, shout out to all our beer club subscribers at home that just launched beer all over my laptop. And I just found out today that my space key is now sticking because of all the beer I've spilled on it because of the show. So
yeah, not really much of a mystery as to why that was probably happening.
Nope, no troubleshooting needed. Not troubleshooting, no testing needed to determine that one. Cheers. I cannot pour in these glasses correctly for the life of me. There we go. And I'm just going to wear that foam mustache like a proud badge. Boy, that's tasty. This is the Deschutes. Why do I say Deschutes? Deschutes.
There you go.
Twilight Summer Ale. Really nice 5% ABV summer ale. It's brewed with a lot of hops, different hops, Amarillo, Sterling, Casimir. And my favorite hop to ever see on anything is an experimental hop that doesn't have a fancy name to it yet. It's just experimental hop number 431.
Just created by a bunch of university students and thrown out there into the world, as all good things are usually.
Yeah. Gotta love those experimental hop varieties. So really loving this beer. Ben, what?
I was gonna say, I actually if you were to hold a gun to my head and ask me to tell you to describe and define a summer ale, I don't know if I'd be able to. But drinking this, if this is a summer ale, then I'm into summer ales.
Yeah, I feel like that is really like a kind of catch-all. It's the big umbrella.
I mean, I guess like
seasonal styles.
Yeah, it's not a pale ale. It's not an amber or a red, but it's hoppy, but it's not like hop forward necessarily. It's light, it's drinkable. It's good. I like it. I'm probably gonna slam it.
Yeah, very drinkable, very crushable. A little bit of background on Deschutes in case anybody didn't know. Oldest craft brewery in Bend, founded in 1988. They're the 11th largest craft brewery in the United States based on sales volume in 2021. It's a huge brewery, like far and away the biggest brewery we've ever featured on this podcast. And they were very great to work with. I got a wonderful tour of their facilities when I was in Bend, and we mentioned it when we talked to Mason, but I got a great recommendation for a sandwich shop from the taproom staff there, and just thoroughly enjoyed everything about my visit there and the sandwich that happened afterwards. But
you always remember a good sandwich.
Absolutely.
That's always going to be a marker in time and place, is when you have a damn good sandwich. You're never going to forget it.
Especially when it's at a place named Chiba Hut and everything on the menu is weed themed and it has a great pun for its name. So
I should have known that it was going to be Chiba Hut.
Yes.
It's come up before.
To our beer club subscribers, we also got some great stickers in there from our friends at Deschutes and Boneyard. Shout out to Jens. But we've been drinking, we've been talking here. We need to get into the real meat of this episode. So without further ado, let's bring on our guest. Please join us in welcoming the founder of Boneyard Brewing Company, Tony Lawrence.
What?
Test. Hello.
We hear you.
You got audio? Do I need to do anything?
Got you. Video.
There we go.
See,
there he is.
There we go.
It's always funny to see yourself. Hi, everyone. Brian and Ben, thanks for having me.
Hello.
How's it going, Tony? Can you do me one favor? Can you move the camera down just a little bit? You have a very nice vaulted ceiling there, but this is more the angle.
It wouldn't let me mute the background, but so what?
No, we're all good. Thanks for joining us. And as mentioned earlier, technical difficulties are par for the course on this show, so you're in good company here.
I'm much better at beer, talking about beer, than figuring out these Bluetooths and such have you.
Cool. Well, let's get into that stuff. Let's start with your background in the industry. What did you do before starting Boneyard?
Well, interesting that I guess why you have I was certainly excited to be here and the company of Deschutes as well, because that's kind of where my journey started. I started at Deschutes in 1989, worked there till November of 2001, or a 12-year run, or from about 1,500 barrels to 120,000 barrels or something. So very much the foundation of and an amazing start to my career in this craft beer game. And clearly we'll get to the full circle aspect of it here in a minute, but for the next 15 years or so, I went down to Phoenix and worked for a small startup called Rio Salado in 2002, 2004. And that was a fun gig, but the craft beer market in Phoenix in 2004 was a little young at best. And then especially, brewers can be, Tim Gossick was my boss and former, brewmaster at Deschutes that I followed down there, and we just wanted to brew lagers. So we were brewing Märzens and Pilsners and Hefeweizens and Schwartz beers and all these different things. Hefeweizen not being a lager, and wit beers, which was a lot of fun for us, but the market wasn't really ready for it. So that lasted a couple of years. I'm originally from California, so I kind of thought I was done with snowboarding and all these things that got me to Bend. Went back to California looking for employment in the Bay Area, which kind of got me to Firestone. I was good friends with Brindelson since I met him in '99 when I was going to brewing school at Siebel in Chicago. And so we've always kept in touch and been great buddies. And I was looking for work in the Bay Area, and he goes, well, why don't you come to Paso Robles to work for me? And so I did. Without talking too much about it, that was a great experience, because at Firestone, I'd been in brewing departments most of my career thus far, but at Firestone, I was led into help with the packaging department, which is not really where brewers want to go. However, the experience, because Firestone does great work, not just with the raw materials, the recipes, but all the other processes that happen in the brewing. From post fermentation to seamer on the can line, for example. But that really started to really round out my brewing career. I feel. I mean, just that year I spent on the packaging line, looking at things from that process rather than from the brew deck, really helped round me out. But that was the last job I ever took. I kind of left there in 2005 and decided to. I just always kind of felt like maybe I had an entrepreneurial spirit in my bones or what have you, and I had to after about 15 years now in the industry, I decided to just sort of see what other options may be out there for me, and I'll try and speed this up. I started a little business called Brewtal, Brewtal, and I was kind of a consultant. I ran around for about 5 or 7 years, and I was brokering tanks, and I was installing tanks and retrofitting your brewery, and just fitting in wherever I could to take a paycheck. But also, this really also helped round out what would be next in my career, which in my timeline, which is the launch of Boneyard, because I brewed for like 13 years, and then I went and did lagers, and then I ended up in packaging, and now I'm out there running around the country, kind of freestyling, reconfiguring brew houses, and just fake it till you make it could be true. Maybe I had the skills, but I'm an engineer installing brew houses, and then that was kind of it. It kind of led to Boneyard.
Awesome.
Which you can see the original location behind you in the imagery. It's pretty humble little spot. I think there's some stories about how this thing got launched, but it's whatever you may have heard, it's much more disastrous and interesting than that.
Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned how your time in packaging at Firestone rounded out your background and your experience and your knowledge. Boneyard just started canning, and I want to know what that's been like for you with the canning and packaging of the beer from your own brewery.
Thanks. It's quite an interesting story. I say that over and over. This is
That's
our
why
logo.
You're here.
This is our logo. This is our logo now, and we'll get into why we're called Boneyard, what the logo means in relation to the word or the name Boneyard, because it all ties up together. But funny enough, when I was drawing up the concepts for this project, probably 2007, in my living room and doing these different things and filling folders full of thoughts and ideas, I was all over cans. And my first logo, I don't have it here, was, there was no art department. There was just me, and then us, Clay and Melody Story, just coming up. And anyhow, our first logo was a pull tab for a can. I've been in big breweries my whole career, and packaging breweries was where I come from. And that was the business model I was going to try and follow. Just get started, get with some draft beer ASAP, see if you can pay the bills, and then flip over into packaging. And strangely enough, we were at the right place with the right time, with the right liquids, with the right brand. Big Bend, Oregon, 2010, modern IPAs. Craft beer scene is just booming. So the reason I bore you with that is because as quick as we could buy kegs and buy more fermenters, we always remained sold out. So the cans always got put on hold. We launched in 2010, 2012, we're on hold. Cans next year. 2014, we built a 50-barrel brewery, which is not the one you see behind you. And we spun that up to 30,000 barrels, draft only. Cans are still on hold. And then we kind of decided, you know what, this is working pretty well. We're already at 30,000 barrels, draft only. This is a pretty good format. This is and then COVID came, and that took away our path to trade, which is bars and restaurants, primarily in the Northwest, and we made the pivot to cans. So we always had it in our DNA. We just got our hand forced when the COVID hit. So quickly we sourced equipment from all over the country in our typical Boneyard way, zip tied it together while we cut concrete and poured a pad, and off we were running.
Yeah. So let's get into that that typical Boneyard way that you alluded to. Let's talk about the origins of the brewery. How was Boneyard is a symbolic name. Can you talk about why your brewery is called Boneyard and how that founding process went?
Love to. It's so fun for me at 12, 13 years now to kind of remember these origin stories and then discuss them or share them with you. But interesting enough, okay, Boneyard. I was keeping folders of various names words, names that I found in marketing, branding, and advertising, TV, radio, print, and I just had these huge folder full of names. Boneyard got to that list because one night on television, in the background while I was cooking dinner or something like that, the guy was about to go to the Boneyard in Las Vegas of all the old neon signs. That word resonated with me. I put it on my list, and then I started thinking about the scope of the project at that point in time, what we had been able to create or not create, given, and all of a sudden it connected the dots. I mean, we were the Boneyard. I've collected equipment from 13, 15 different breweries, a keg, a refrigeration compressor, a weird little mix and match tank to form our brewery. So it just became too obvious. It had to happen. As well as, to be honest, it wasn't in use. The trademark was available. The .com was available. But when you put all those factors together, that's how it came to be. Quickly, I will add, at that point in time, I really wanted to be called Alien, A-L-E-I-E-N. But I kind of just stayed away from that because there was Alien beer made out in New Mexico or something.
Of course.
That's a really good name. Somebody should take that. Just real quick, are you comfortable giving a rundown of some of the equipment that's in the facility behind us? Because I think the brew house came from a pretty well-known brewery, and some of those tanks came from places people may have heard of, and it was really cool to hear all those backstories when I was there. Ooh, knocking a glass over.
It's hilarious. So when I had my gig Brutal, that was the sort of, I was out there running around the country doing fabrication, installation, whatever. I got to be friends with Three Floyds guys in '99 when I was going to brewing school at Siebel. That relationship always got stronger and stronger until one time we were at CBC Seattle, 2005 or 7 or something like that. And Nick Floyd says, "Hey, Tony, what are you doing tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Wow." He's like, if I give you a plane flight, you come into Chicago because we need some help out here. And I said, well, of course. I'm a freelance. I'm a hired gun. So anyhow, that really tightened our relationships. And then, so I was close to the scenes. And Nick and Three Floyds were putting in a 30-barrel brewery at the time, probably 2008 or 2009. And well, the 20-barrel brewery was kind of in the way. And I could sniff that out. And I was like, well, Nick, you know, if I had a truck there later this week, and if I did this, and if I did that, could I bring that equipment back to Bend? And he's like, you're saying you can come here by this weekend, extract that brewery, have a truck, and get it out of my way. And I said, I can do that. And so that was kind of where the 20-barrel brewery came from. Came out of Three Floyds. That's kind of how we got to the thing. And, you know, Nick doesn't like me to, he doesn't prefer, it's not that he doesn't like me to mention it much, but, you know, at that point in time, there had to be a financial transaction of some kind. I didn't have any money. So Nick was so kind, he goes, hey, Tone, I believe in you. How about I give you this equipment and I'm 5% equity owner? And I said, deal. So that's kind of how we got going. And some of the tanks and things are really pretty funny. Some of the tanks, if you came to our brewery, were all named. The first 10 tanks were all named after various individuals and characters along my journeys where the tank came from. I had a couple tanks from Lone Peak Brewing in Big Sky, Montana. That was Mac and Steve. And then I named tanks after Nick and Barnaby from Three Floyds, and where some of the tanks came from. So, you know, there's just a lot of interesting stories out there. Yeah. Well,
Mercedes and Wang here.
All right. Well, let's try and explain those ones right quick. Yeah, Wong. Wong was one of the guys I worked for a lot of years. He's a equipment manufacturer out of China that I got to be really close with. I know there's some people that maybe get a little distasteful or curious about equipment from China, but my engineer and manufacturer Wong was amazing. I could work with him one-on-one, and we would do amazing work together. Mercedes. You know, when we ran out of interesting stories for the origin story for the fermenter, like the Wong tank or the Barnaby tank, we had to get a little bit more interesting. So we had 3 tanks come in, 3 40-barrel tanks that you're seeing on the one on the tank on the left, just happened to fill up a sea container. And well, these tanks were Mercedes, Porsche, and Lexus, and they were either cars or ballet dancers, depending on how you see it. So fun stuff.
Yeah, well, I was hoping that maybe now we could enjoy the fruits of some of that engineering and that labor. Brian, can we open the next beer?
Yeah, of course we can.
All right, let's do it. So it's Boneyard RPM. This beer has been ubiquitous to me since I've moved to Oregon, but I was wondering, Tony, what you could tell us about the RPM IPA.
Well, I'd love to attempt that. Your journey as a brewer, as an artist, as a scientist, a liquid producer of liquid, it doesn't come quick and easy. And remember when I was telling you I was working at Rio Salado, it was like one of the first times, even though we were a lager focused brewery, it was one of the first times after I got out of the big house at Deschutes where I had the reins. I could control the brewery from grain to cap. And I started producing some IPAs the first time that were solely mine. They weren't a byproduct of a team or political system. And at that time, I liked really dry beers and I liked really hoppy beers. And to be honest, I learned the hard way, which was beers need to be balanced. Just because you like dry beers and you like really hoppy beers, sometimes a super dry beer and a super hoppy beer don't really mesh that well. They were good, they were clean, but there was just something off about them. I really, that stuck to me when I got to Boneyard. It was time to start making an IPA. And I remember the last time I had the opportunity to make my own beers, what was good, what was wrong. And so I started making the adjustments. I started using a little bit more specialty malts in my grist bill, which is kind of Munich and Vienna malts at about 5% each. But then also stealing that back with dextrose. I like dextrose usage a lot. And so it was just where IPAs were at when I was trying to do this. Who was I inspired by? What notes could I borrow from? Which is experience at Firestone, inspired by Russian River, my time at Three Floyds, what I've done right or wrong in the past, all went into this RPM thing. So it was like that's kind of how it worked. Strangely enough, it was about. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to ask: is that what the base still is? Is it mostly Munich and Vienna, or is there 2-row typical malts that you would find in America?
Oh yeah, no, yeah. We're running about. It's not proprietary. Probably run about 85% 2-row silo malt, about 5% each Munich and Vienna. I like acidulated and dextrose. So whether you look at the dextrose by weight or by extract, that's more or less kind of the makeup. And here's the concept behind it: is I thought using some Munich and Vienna at those percentages would give it a little backbone to stand on to support the hops. But then I'm also kind of stripping that back a little bit with the dextrose usage at equal percentage by weight. So it sounds kind of offsetting or strange, but it really works. Build in some flavor, some backbone, and then steal back the unfermentables and the maltiness using dextrose. And I'm a big fan of acidulated malt.
Yeah, this is tasting just as nice as I had it as it was when I had it at the tap room. I had a very wonderful visit to your original tap room. I had a really nice time with your coworker Liz. She showed me all around the place, and my most pressing question, most important question is this your case of vintage ham?
That's a great question. We haven't really chatted about. Somehow I'm going to use this as a intersection to introduce Clay and Melody's story a little bit, going to the building behind you. If you're looking at, there's 2 units there. There's 2 garage doors. I got started on the right side, Unit B, I believe it is, and I was subleasing from Clay and Melody's story, Unit A. And as I was sitting over there cutting concrete and doing various things, we were already friends, got to be a lot closer. And subsequently, I needed some money to help finish the project because $7,000 or $8,000 in a credit card wasn't quite enough. And we became business partners. And I believe that Ham's Keg Box is historically from the Clay and Milty Story family. That's
Okay.
kind of how I remember it.
Yeah, that is if we're talking favorite cheap beers, that is my personal favorite cheap beer. But I really wanted to ask that just to segue into a question. I heard you recently reopened the tap room there at the original location. How has that been?
Sure. It's a lot of fun for me, for various reasons, to sort of preserve where this whole thing started at. Is it a financial operation? No. We really would like to invite people. We think it's an interesting story. It's an interesting address, and having people over to have a pint and kind of take a peek around, a look around, seems like the obvious thing to do. And so we did open a real pub here in Bend 4 years ago, this July. And after that, this particular address didn't have too much of an application. We had a 50-barrel brewery on the other side of town. We had a bar and restaurant down the street. So this address was kind of sitting there growing dust. But here we are. We decided to put some money into it and reinvest. You can see a couple little things in the background. It may not look like much, but see that AstroTurf in the back? We're actually putting an outside beer garden, and there's a food cart over here on the left. And what's interesting about that, even after all the years, you can see that door with stickers on it. All we had in there was a tasting room. In that tasting room, you could get your beers to go, your crowlers, your growlers, and some samples. But at the end of the day, you couldn't have pints there. So yes, now you can come have a pint. Thanks for asking. So see you down there. Come on down, have a pint. If you're looking to have food and stuff, I suggest you come to, we got a rather nice food, big pub, also here in Bend, which I may add, all my years in the industry making beer, I thought a pub would be kind of easy, but yeah, I thought I could just throw up the logo and everybody come running down and we'd make a bunch of money because we got Boneyard. That's not accurate.
It's a whole other animal.
That's like those people that are on like Restaurant Nightmares or like the Bar Rescue. They're like, oh, we retired and we thought we'd start a restaurant as a retirement business. We thought it'd be a nice, easy business.
I don't know I don't know how much time we have here, but we don't do much marketing or advertising historically. It was a company that was just very few people, no budget. But we did do a radio ad like 10 or 11 years ago. And somewhere in there, it kind of alluded to the fact that, our friends, colleagues, and competitors, they kind of got these bars and restaurants where they're diluted with their talking points in the boardroom with food costs and different stuff. And we're just going to focus on the beer here. That's what we do. We're not going to worry about food. And then I went and opened a pub. And so what I'm trying to say is we're sitting here at 6 o'clock. I just exited a pub meeting and raced home to get on this call where I was having all those uncomfortable conversations about the back of house team or something like that. Much respect to all that, but it's just the stuff that happens in the food and beverage space.
Let's take a beer break and talk about one of the best ways to explore Central Oregon breweries, the Bendail Trail. Founded in 2010, the Bendail Trail has grown into 7 different territories, expanding throughout Central Oregon. With 30 breweries, over 17 drinkable diversions, and amazing perfect pairings to complete your Bend adventure. More beer and even more prizes await you on the Bend Ale Trail. Visit bendaletrail.com for more details. And now let's get back to the show.
So focusing back on the beer itself, you guys are known around these parts for your hop forward beers, but I've read that you've been getting into mixed fermentation more. And I was wondering, have you learned anything from making these mixed culture beers that's informed your clean beer process?
First of all, Ben, a clean beer process, I mean, I'm a big champion of that. Maybe everyone doesn't know, but my personal philosophy as a brewer, order of operations, clean, balanced, interesting. If you're close to me, you're going to get like Tony said it again, because there's so many beers that can be attempting to be super interesting with all the modern yet to be named hops or this and that. That somewhere along the way, they've just lost themselves through yeast vitality or yeast or something else. Just there's always an off flavor. So clean beer is always number one. Balanced beer, it always has to be. And in the craft beer space, hopefully it's very interesting as well. Our mixed culture program is really about 6 or 7 years now. It was me being me. I'm all in type of guy. I had a broker that had some foeders available from France, and I really wanted to get into goose style lambics.
Nice.
As a brewer, as a consumer, it's one of my other than IPAs, like the thing that really feeds me. And also probably one of the most challenging spaces to try and tackle. Not just a sour beer, like a kettle sour, but a true goose style, right?
Yeah.
The dynamics, the multiple. And so I don't know what happened, but before you know it, I had 4 60 hectoliter foeders sitting on the ground here in America that came from France. And then I'm like, okay, what's next? And so we just dove all in.
How to use them.
And since we are a draft only IPA brewery, I thought it would maybe help kind of let people know that we do other things than just ale IPAs and draft beer. So we came out swinging with 750 mil painted glass, Cajun cork, true lambic style, pretty darn good to be honest. But by that time, it seemed to me that 750s were kind of over. Everyone's in the 500s, and some of these specialty $18 bottle thing. I missed the whole window. Truth is, they're really good. We've got 2 lambics that I really stand behind: Goose Cruise and Funky Bunch. And I can tell you this: I'm sitting on 200 barrels in the foeders right now of these beers. They're delicious. Let's go. Maybe we should just have a party, open up some Swickles, and get to work.
Oh my God! Don't tempt me with a good time. Again, 2 weeks in a row, I have to very, very much restrain myself from not just turning this into Brian talks about lambic with his friends forever. Because everything that you just said there, it's the most beautiful, nuanced style of beer, and you just throw caution to the wind. Like, here, nature, what can you give me?
I don't know, again, our time, but pretty interesting story. So we have 2 of them. We have 4 foeders. 2 foeders are inoculated one way, the other a different way. And so when I was out working in the field doing different projects, there's a guy, Steve Altamiri, out of Northern California, a very talented brewer. And he was working at a brewery called Valley Brewing Company in Stockton. And, him and the company split ways. I was kind of hired to come in and help the company limp along from a brewing and packaging standpoint. And he had clearly was obvious to me, some weird inoculants in the back room. And he was very talented. Ales, IPAs, stouts, sour beers. This guy's really good. So I took a liter back to Ben, put it in a barrel. And, I populated this up for 5 years, and this was what's in 2 of the foeders. Years later, I got to be friends with Steve. I go, Steve, what was that bottle, sour number 5? And he goes, oh, And then he got back to me 24 or 48 hours later. He goes, well, Tony, I just put some wort out in the parking lot here in Stockton by the shipyards and propagated that up. And that's what I think somewhere along the way, I got some, I can't remember the different wild strains right now, but I fortified it with a couple different things along the way. But that was the origin story of that. While the other ones we use, oh boy, I'm drawing a blank. It's been so long.
Like a Rosalaire or like a
sorry, geez. Move on. I'll get back to it. It's the
just shout it out. Like, if you're in the middle of an answer to another question, just shout out this thing if you think about it.
We'll know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we'll
it was Brett Dre, and Lambikas, I think. But what I'm trying to say is we try to create our own cocktail mixture of these 2 wild yeast strains, and thinking that we are being really intelligent and we're going to develop all these fun flavors and acids and different things. And at the end, I kind of like the long story strain that came out of parking lot in Stockton, California.
It certainly has a better story behind it. So let's get to the full circleness of this that you've alluded to. Boneyard was recently acquired by our other featured brewery tonight, Deschutes. Can you talk about how that relationship has been for you as both an owner of Boneyard and also for Boneyard as a brand?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, a lot. It's super. The story's still being written. I'm super excited. I mean, we talked about COVID being a draft only brewery, and I feel like I'm patting ourselves on the back. But when we open, when we put that lightning in the can, when finally put RPM in a can, it opened the floodgates, and there was no way, at least we saw it, that we'd ever have the capacity at our other brewery on Plateau Street to fulfill to both draft and package obligations. So we started creeping around looking for some help, which led to knocking into Deschutes for obvious reasons. They have a long-standing history there. They're in Bend, Oregon, amazing facility right down the street from my house. You know, which led to a fun conversation, except for, well, Tony, you know, that sounds great, except for we don't want to compete with you. We'd rather have skin in the game. So that's kind of how it got going. And I like to share this with everybody. It's a true partnership. We have skin in the game currently, both directions. So you know, every transaction is different. But let it be known, Boneyard tagline, that we're true partners as we speak here today. I take a salary. I'm at the brewery every day, and the whole team is working to fulfill our dreams and obligations. But it's really exciting. Utilizing, I've always been interested if Boneyard, and still am, is a brand or a beer that could potentially work between Seattle and San Diego, for example. And now we're going to test that theory because we have the brewing capacity, we have the packaging line, all the tools that they already had in their box with their distribution relationships or the other co-owners on the streets in various communities. So I couldn't be more excited to see this case pack on the floor at Costco or down in Phoenix, Arizona, and things like this. I'm not sure if I didn't write down, you know, I might have escaped some of the direct questions there. The project is still underway. We're learning how to work with each other. Clearly, why I was the top dog previously and what happened in the brewery behind you or the other brewery, we looked at it as a team, but the ability to discuss that and make an adjustment was rather rapid with the layers and that a larger brewery has, the checks and balances, the insurance, and all these different things. It's a longer process from concept to package nowadays. So that's been most interesting part for me, but that's what brewers do. I totally respect and understand that process. I just never had to go through it before.
So, Tony, I've had a lot of great nights drinking RPM, and I've had a lot of not so great nights where RPM was the highlight of my night. But I'm curious, what is your favorite non-Boneyard beer?
That's a great question, Ben. You know, it bounces around based off, you know, where my head is at currently as a brewer. You know, what we're trying to create, I think, is about pleasing your inner desires for myself, but then also dividing that by the business construct and what the consumers want. I mean, for example, I still haven't made a hazy beer. I think there's plenty of good ones out there, but I just come from a different generation and I'm a West Coast guy. I don't know. Let's not get into that.
That's
I
fine.
respect that.
Yeah.
I'm super for that.
But on the opposite end of that is what is feeding my desires. And, you know, when we got going, I already shared with you, I tried to model or identify key markers in beers like Russian River, Firestone, Three Floyds. But currently, you know, as much as I get to experiment with different hops and all the things that we do, I'm still so curious. I feel like this IPA that I'm dreaming up, this unicorn IPA, I still haven't been able to find. And when I'm out and traveling, and I taste something that's close to it, that's what I'm chasing at the time. Currently, Ben, to answer your question, the most recent inspiration that I have that I'm trying to chase down is sorry about that, is Ghost Town. Some of the IPAs they're making down there in Oakland at Ghost Town are exactly what I think a West Coast IPA is supposed to be like. And so my inspirations are jumping around. For a while I was in the lambics. At the end of the day, I'm an IPA guy. I love my lagers. And I do think that the flavors that the consumer is looking for and the evolution of the maturity of this craft beer space at 30 years plus, somewhere between 20 and 30, everything's just getting better and more refined. All these brewers like myself and others are just getting better and better each year. So what was really influenced me 5 years ago, what I thought I knew about beer 5 years ago is different than where it is today. So some of these people are just, anyhow, lately I'm trying to track down how to make a beer that tastes like Ghost Town.
Awesome.
That's great. So Tony, we ask all of our guests this one final question to cap things off. What is one thing that you wish Bend was more well known for?
Okay, thanks, Brian.
drop a bomb on you at the end, make you think a little bit, dig into it.
More well known for, well, Boneyard, clearly.
Shameless plug. I wholeheartely support that.
Bend, I'm not trying to dodge the question. It has been on such a growth spurt, and it's changing so much every day that it's recreating itself every year. Currently, the amount of live music, the amount of food options, and entertainment and breweries and the likes are just exploding and out of control. So had I fielded this question 5 or 9 years ago, you would have got the response from me that you just heard, which is, it's so close. Some of the old school people don't want to be what it is today, but I was always looking for that, looking for a little bit more high quality, more interesting cross-cultural food, music, arts, and entertainment. So we got that recently, and I think that Bend is now well known for that, to be honest. Look at a lot of the amphitheater here is pulling down rather large names to skip right through Portland and other communities, and they just come straight to Bend.
Pretty cool.
Pretty dodgy response to your question, but
that's fine. We know it's a question that leaves a lot of ambiguity, and lets people answer however they see fit. So thanks, Tony. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you, Tony.
Can you tell people where they can find Boneyard Beer?
Hey, people, what's that link over there? Check it out real quick, though. I think one thing we might, if we had just another minute, skip over a little bit is we did chat about sort of where the Boneyard name came from, but the logo, if you check it out one more time, with a skull and the crossbone wrenches, really kind of help complete the story, at least for me. Hey, skull and crossbones are cool. I'm a West Coast, like skate surf kid, but the skull kind of is in the graveyard or the boneyard where the equipment came from. The crossbone wrenches really signify that we do almost all of our own welding and pipe fitting and different assets of the applications to install the brewery. And the question, Brian, was where can they find Boneyard Beer?
Yeah, where can the people buy Boneyard Beer?
Well, that's changed a whole lot, at least recently, with the partnership with Deschutes, because it was only in kegs at all the bars and restaurants in Oregon. But recently, between Seattle, Boise, Reno, Bay Area, Phoenix, in 12-ounce cans, 16-ounce cans, and kegs, up and down the West Coast. Still just in select markets. The game's pretty interesting to try, and you don't just enter markets for the heck of it. You have to sort of identify what your strategy is and who your distribution partnerships are with. So we're still a West Coast brewery. We're not trying to get out into 17 states or nothing like that. So you'll see us in the 4 or 5 West Coast states, and we'll see how that works out.
Awesome. Well, thanks Tony for joining us. Ben and I are going to wrap up here, so feel free to go back to a restaurant meeting or whatever, he can hang out here. I don't know why I had to make this weird and awkward. Thanks, Ben, for co-host. Sorry, Tony.
Oh, no good. Appreciate it so much. Thanks for your interest. And I don't know who's all out there on the list over here, but I appreciate your interest as well.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
That's awesome. Throwing the beer finder link in there so you can find those specific places to find Boneyard beers. Ben, thank you so much for co-hosting this month.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
It's been my pleasure. I hope we can do this again soon. I think Christmas sounds like a good time at the very least for us to rejoin our powers for a live stream.
And I'm hoping by at least that point, I do get you to freestyle over some sort of beat.
Oh my God, I forgot we made that joke at the beginning of the month. I've had a whirlwind of a month, and I completely forgot about that. And when I made that joke originally, I was like, oh, I'm gonna write a stupid rap and then I'll do it. But yeah, any other final thoughts on Bend other than trying to get me to freestyle rap on here?
Well, what I've realized is I think on the first episode this month, I mentioned that I'd been there before. I didn't really remember too much of it because of extenuating circumstances. And I'd like to go back again and make memories, but I'm very intrigued by this idea that Tony just sort of threw out there about a Zwickle party. With a bunch of lambics and fooders, and I mean that sounds right up my alley. Brian, I know you've been there more recently than I have, but yeah, if there's a Zwickle party, I'll be there. I'll find a way. I don't have a car, but I'll find a way down there.
It's so delicious. I like my lambics bottle conditioned, high carbonation, but strangely, just off the foeder, room temperature and flat, it's also unbelievable.
Yeah, that's right up my alley. You are speaking my language.
And that sounds like an open invitation too. So I just walk into Boneyard anytime and be like, "Hey, I'm here to drink."
This is being recorded. We have receipts.
Yeah. That is a great idea. I believe we could probably set the cameras up in front of the fooders and do a time lapse, and we'll see how that content develops.
Amazing. Then we'll get some Chiba Hut. And we'll have a great time.
Man, don't threaten me with a good time. Is that the second time I said that tonight? I don't know.
I think so.
I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
I'm like the Steelers coach. I just speak in euphemisms and sayings now.
Yeah, say it again in 5 minutes. It's okay.
Hey Ben, don't threaten me with a good time. And thanks. I love Ben. I had such a good time visiting there. I had such a good time talking about them this month. I am going to try to convince my wife and my 2-year-old daughter to trek across the country in the next year or so and head to Bend for an actual vacation, non-work trip, because that Bend is exactly my type of city. And I hope to drink more beers like this in the near future. And, one final thanks to our featured breweries for providing us some really crushable beers for this episode. You can find more from Deschutes at deschutesbrewery.com, and you can find more from our friends at Boneyard at boneyardbeer.com. Also, just one final shout out to all of our featured breweries this month, not just Deschutes and Boneyard, but also Bridge 99, Good Life. Oh my God, I'm swallowing my spit, choking on my spit. Good Life.
At least you can drink water now. You've gotten past that hurdle.
Yeah, learned how to drink water since last week.
Awesome.
Shout out to our featured breweries. Jesus. Not only Deschutes and Boneyard, but also Good Life, Bridge 99, Crux Fermentation Project, and I think that was all of them. Man, I'm just screwing this up. I should have wrote this down in my copy here.
Sun River.
Monkless.
Monkless too, yes. And shout out to all of the wonderful breweries in the Bend, Oregon area. As always, you can find more from us. There's many. You find more from us at brewvana.com. Check out the beer club there. You can get great beer shipped to you monthly and drink with us on the live stream as we record these wonderful podcast episodes. You can also follow us on the show's social medias at Brewvana. That's at Brewvana. We'll be back next week with our newest featured city. And boy, I can't wait for you to all see what city we have next. I hope you like it. Until then, stay safe, be kind, and support local breweries. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you
Cheers.
so much.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for watching Brews Less Traveled on YouTube. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more interviews with brewery professionals.